Okay, perfect, perfect, yeah, perfect. That's awesome. Okay, so let's begin. Okay, so I'll just quickly close a few tabs and just align the windows and so on. Okay, so first of all, yeah, even before beginning, some of you might be wondering who is this guy, right? And some of you might be knowing from the intro, etc., that might have gone in your WhatsApp groups or so on, or on the invite in the mail. But I will give you a quick background about myself. Okay. So basically, I completed my BTech plus MS from Triple IT Hyderabad, and just a bit of background about myself. So initially, of course, like many of you, right, I wanted to go into CS, right, but got a admission into EC, right, and related branches. So uh, after maybe first year learning a few subjects, etc., from EC, and some of you might be able to relate it, right? So some of you who are from the other branches might be able to relate it. That of course the interest was there in coding, etc. You wanted to get become a software engineer, right? And at that point of time, seeing some of my seniors and seeing some of my CS batchmen, I started coding, and I started coding on websites like CodeChef, CodeForces, etc., doing a little bit of competitive programming. At that time, I did not know why it was important, etc., but was just doing it for the love of it, right? And we then maybe also succeeded a little bit in it, like went to ACM, ICPs, etc. And what was the philosophy of the problem solving that I use, and my some of my teammates and my batchmates also use. I will also be talking about it, right? Uh, and then basically in my third year, so it was not an internship year for us because it was a dual degree. So I was in my third year, but I did apply for a few companies, and uh, luckily I got shortlisted in one, right? And it was like one of my first interviews, and that was for uh, Google, right? So it was for Google Europe in general. So there were two DSA rounds. To be honest, at that time, I did not know how to give an interview and so. Uh, of course, like there were a few people to guide me somewhere, but mostly did not have much idea. So went into a draw, and hopefully the interviews were cleared, and I did get selected for Google London. After there's a one more round called as project matching after that, right? So and that required resume and building and so on and so forth. Okay. So that was a very interesting experience, but it was after actually interning in Google, right? Knowing their internal structure, etc. And seeing the other people around me, that's when I majorly learned what all is required to actually crack an interview. So attempting an interview is very much like I would say a process in itself. Okay. And it's not just about problem solving, there are also more aspects to it. So I discovered that. Okay. And like what was the criterias on which these companies like Google, Apple, etc. Evaluated candidates on. So that's also what I came to know. I used to also talk to my manager about like what kind of interview questions he used to take, and what was his criteria for judging, how he used to pass those tidbits to for the interview to his hiring committee and so on. Okay. uh, so all this was, I would say, discussed. Okay. And then like once I came back, and so I got an offer to probably go once again the next year, but this time unfortunately, like my advisor stopped me over there, and I was not allowed to go. And then in the next year I had to sit for campus placements also, and I had to restart all over again to do off campus and so on. But in that period of time, that's when I again cracked two offers from campus that happened side by side. I had to choose one. So it was Apple and MotorQ. So MotorQ is a startup which offered around 1 crore CTC at that time. And there was, of course, a good offer from Apple. And simultaneously, I was also applying off campus, right? So in off campus, I also got into Google. I also got into Amazon Berlin, right? So had all these offers, and one thing was there, right? So people at that time used to also like ask me, right? So what are the other things that you're doing, and so on. I used to also mentor the folks, and while I was doing this, because I had an idea of like how the things work internally, I would say. So when those pieces of guidance came, so it was so much obvious to them, and like it helped so many people that at that time I side by side also started teaching a few people, right? So I then joined into Apple as a software engineer, after all, right? And then while I was doing my job at Apple, I also used to teach side by side and mentor a few folks. And mostly people at the starting have this idea that, okay, yeah, I will just come into the course and I will learn a few things and so on. But in that first year, in 2020, I presume, when we took our first batch, we had 15 students. And these 15 students were students from, of course, NIT, like NIT Raipur, and some IIT, right? So IIT Bhilai. And out of this 15 students, to the surprise of us, to the surprise of the universities, and to the surprise of the students themselves, 3 out of this 15 students cracked international offer, right? They got offer from ByteDance Singapore. It was first time in the history of Chhattisgarh in 5 years that people had cracked international offers, right? So that news also spread like a wildfire. But more than that, it was I was so happy because like one of the things was that uh, we were now able to like transfer this knowledge, and we were able to help students in getting their best placements, right? And even from the rest of the 12, right? 3 again went into Google, few went into companies like Amazon, Fanatics, D-Shaw, Deutsche Bank, etc. Few of them then went on to Adobe, maybe 5 to 6 months later in off campus. So all this was very exciting, and that's when we, after 1 to 2 years, were over in Apple, and now the demand was more. So I then left to start AlgoUniversity full time, and currently it's been around almost 2.5 to 3 years from there that I'm teaching in AlgoUniversity, and have currently mentored more than 500 plus folks, right? In this very same domain. So today's lecture is not only just about my experiences, of course, that will be limited to a few companies and so on, but it's also about the combined experience of this 500 plus folks that were able to crack great offers, right? So just to give you a quick track record, around 3 got into ByteDance Singapore, 2 got into JP Morgan London. So this were the international offers. Around 17 have got into Google, 12 have got into Microsoft, around 10 plus have got into Adobe, 10 plus have got into Amazon, D-Shaw, Deutsche Bank, Flipkart, Goldman Sachs, Sprinkler, Incref, Mentor Graphics, Oracle, and so on. The list is really long, but yeah. So we'll be talking about them, right? Okay, so this was a very quick introduction about myself. Okay, and post this, right, we'll also quickly show you how I think about placements and what is it that I learned, right? So before beginning, right, how many of you here have heard about a guy called as Charlie Munger, right? Like Charlie Munger had like one of his talks just a few days before. So how many of you have heard about this, right? If you have heard, just give a quick yes. If no, it's fine. Just can give a no. No, okay. So some of you say yes, some of you say no. Okay, but most of you might not be knowing. That's completely fine, right? So Charlie Munger is one of the very legendary investors that we have in the world, right? his company, along with somebody you might be knowing, Warren Buffett, earned a maximum of, let's say, 20% returns over year, compounded and so on. Okay. So one of the very famous guys, one of the billionaires, etc., and one of the greatest minds to be born on earth. So he has his two very famous sayings. Okay. And what I will be doing is I will also be building upon these sayings. Okay. So he has a famous saying, invert, always invert, right? So now some of you might be wondering here, we wanted to talk about placement, we wanted to talk about interns. Why is he starting with all this, right? So just be there, right? Because soon you will understand how these frameworks will help you in basically not only thinking about placement season, but thinking about in general how to develop as a software engineer, right? And second is like, do not go where you die. Okay. Do not go where you are about to die. So this looks very, very simple framework here. Okay. Do not go where you die. Okay. Looks very simple. Then how is it related to placement season? How is it related to internship? And what is meant by invert, always invert, right? So I'll be explaining this. Okay. So generally the way we approach problems is this, right? Suppose I have to study about placements. So I will think यार interview crack करने के लिए क्या क्या चाहिए. Okay, that's what I will be thinking. The way many problems are solved, right, and many complex problems are solved is by thinking backwards. Okay, so this philosophy is about thinking backwards. Okay. So let's try to think backwards for a few seconds. Okay. So I want you to imagine the following. Okay. That let's say you were a software engineering one. Okay. So you have cracked the best company that you have dreamt of in the campus, and you are a software engineering one at, let's say, your maybe dream company, maybe Google. Okay. Maybe you're a software engineering one at Amazon, Cred, etc. Right? Wherever you want to go. Okay. Adobe, Amazon, etc. Right? So wherever you are a software engineering one over there. And let's imagine for 1 second that you have like cracked this offer already. Now imagine what will you be doing at this company, right? So anyone has any idea? Let's say you become a software engineering one at Google, Amazon. What will you be expected to do? Okay. Some say Oracle. Okay. So Google, Amazon, Oracle, any great product-based company that pays top salary. Okay. It might be even some startups, etc. But what will you be doing when you are a software engineering one over there? Okay, so would love to know your answers on this. So please feel free to type it on the chat. Okay, so some of you said developing software, coding. Okay, good. What about others, right? I want you to give new answers. Okay, so working on many projects, product features, software development. Perfect, right? Solving real world problems. Nice. Finding bugs, analytics, strategy. Okay. Okay, strategy. DBMS, develop the company. Okay. Nothing related to data structure. That's good. That's good. Okay. 10x the sale of company. Okay. Thinking out of box, teamwork. Okay. So variety of answers. Anything else? Providing new tech ideas. Okay. Chalo yaar. So I received some of your answers. Okay. And let's now try to analyze them. Okay. So the major thing that you will be doing as a software engineer at any of this company, right, is you will be problem solving. Okay. You will be problem solving. Now you might wonder, यार वहां भी जाके lead code करना पड़ेगा क्या? कि वहां भी जाके problem solve करना पड़ेगा? So no, I'm not talking about problem solving in that sense, guys. So just imagine this, right? So if anything that's a problem, right? So your bug might be a problem. The new feature that many of you told, right? That might be a problem. the mini projects that you talked about, that might be a problem. Okay. The new ways to bring revenue and developing a product for that, that might be a problem. But in essence, what you are doing is you are doing problem solving. Okay. And what are you doing problem solving through? You are doing problem solving through code. Okay. You are doing problem solving through code. That's the most important part. And what you will be doing over there is you will be solving new problems. Wo problems or that problems won't be such problems that have occurred beforehand, right? That can never happen. If they had occurred beforehand, there might already be a solution to it and so on. Someone might have developed a piece of software or code for it, but that's not the case, right? So you will be expected to problem solve through code, right? And mostly it will be a new problem. So as a company, right, if I want to hire SWM, right, so one of the things that I'll be seeing is problem solving. Okay. So that's will then deconstruct, we'll think backwards and see what all do they want in interview, right? So we'll come to that one by one. Okay, so problem solving is one thing. What else do you guys think, right? So some of you, so most of you, the answers I saw maybe lie around this thing only, problem solving. But what else are you expected to do as a SW1? Okay, just try to think of it, right? So will you be working alone? Will you be working in a team? If you are working in a team, what is required? Okay, so learning new skills. Okay, so new skills, again, I can say a part of problem solving. Why do you learn new skills? To solve some particular challenge and so on. Okay, exactly. So now some of you have started mentioning teamwork requires cooperation. Okay, and essentially whenever we talk about teamwork or cooperation, etc., there's one thing that comes by. Okay, and that is communication. How much ever good of problem solver you are, kitna bhi acha aap code likh lo, right? Whatever is your level, unless you will have to finally work in a team, right? Unless you don't communicate it well with your managers, with your peers, in both verbal fashion or in, basically you might say, in a written fashion via documentation, etc., you won't be able to like make an impact in your team, because either your work will not go through. Okay, or you will not be able to effectively collaborate, communicate your ideas, etc., and so on. Okay, so communication is very essential. And even as a software engineering one, so some of you said you are maybe developing new things for company, but many times do realize this, that in big companies generally the decision is taken by some management or maybe senior software engineers, etc. So as a SWE1, आप पे इतना pressure नहीं आएगा, right? You won't have that pressure that you have to maybe deliver new products, etc., right? That might come later on. Okay, but initially many times you will be even given the task, you will be given the problem, you will be even, let's say, given the solution for it. What will matter is after that how you are able to code it, how you are able to communicate it, whether you are able to understand the requirements, whether you are able to take the hints, okay, and convert it into solutions and so on. Okay, so all this is required. Okay, and these are the two most important criteria that are there. Okay, and majorly now we'll talk about interviews. So your interviews will also be built upon this. Okay, but even apart from that, let's say there's one more extra skill that you can add. Okay, and this might not be there for all companies, but only a few companies. Okay, so that's why I'm drawing it through a separate arrow. Okay, and that might be some specific knowledge. Okay, so many companies that are big companies may not require this. You just have general rounds, that's it. But some companies like startup, etc., might require that you have some specific knowledge in some web framework or some technology or some particular language, etc., right? Or maybe some CS subject and so on. So I will just keep it in the category of specific knowledge that it might be required for some of the companies. Okay, so majorly if you talk about a software engineering one, if you have this, follow this three brackets, okay? So you will be able to do the job of a software engineering one really well, okay? If you are able to write good, clean, consistent code and problem solve through it, if you are able to communicate effectively, and wherever required, you have that particular specific knowledge, okay? Now just imagine this fact and let's try to break it backwards, okay? Let's try to break it backwards. So now if the company wants this, okay, in their day-to-day role, what will they try to test the candidates upon, right? They will try to test the candidates upon those things that are required in day-to-day role, and they will see if the candidate is able to do that well, then most likely the high probability is that the candidate will also do well in our day-to-day job, okay? So this looks trivial, but it's very, very important to understand this mentality, because without this mentality, people go into the interview and feel that, yeah, I solved the questions, right? But then why was I not selected, right? To understand that thing, you need to understand this particular mentality, okay? And from this is derived the aspect of interview, right? The interview aspects are required, okay? So what all is required now to so let's say crack the interviews and so on. So let's try to deconstruct that, and what will these companies, etc., that your dream companies will test you upon based upon these three principles, okay? So the first and foremost is your problem solving, okay? So we'll come to problem solving. We'll tackle the biggest elephant in the room, problem solving, okay? So essentially, the companies want to see your problem solving either through some or the other things, right? So maybe they want a experience of the past. So they will look at something like a project, okay, your resumes, etc. But most of the problem solving, right, that companies test for. So of course, they do not have time to give you the whole project, etc. They just have 1 hour, right? So the proxy that they use is DSA, okay? So many people have this idea that I need to learn DSA and that's it, okay? The idea is not to just learn DSA. DSA is just a proxy for problem solving. The actual thing that you need to learn is problem solving through DSA, right? Or problem solving in DSA. So it's one thing to just, let's say, maybe learn a algorithm, like let's say BFS, okay, or binary search. But that alone is not enough, right? So what you want is the different applications of binary search, right? Different patterns of binary search that can arrive, right? So that is the most important. And this is where I find the biggest mistake people make and will be making in this 3 to 6 months, okay? And that's where like the good folks won't be doing this, okay? So what is that, okay? So now we come to this second principle: do not go where you are about to die, okay? Do not go where you are about to die. So what does this principle say? This principle says very simple thing, right? Here, if I know where I am going to die, I won't go there and I will definitely live, okay? So just that way, if I know what are the mistakes that people make, okay, then I won't make those mistakes. And if I won't make those mistakes, I will naturally do things correctly. And that is easier to do than even do the right things or identify the right things, okay? So what are the mistakes people make, okay? The mistakes people make are the following, right? People just go by blindly solving question, okay? So suppose one of the approaches that I've seen very regularly is chalo yaar binary search, chalo yaar BFS, okay? Let's try to randomly solve 15, 20 questions from here or there, or maybe see some resource, etc. And just try to solve the question without any plan of how much time you want to give to this, without any plan of how much questions you need, without any plan of what all are the subtopics inside this topic and what all are the patterns inside this topic, okay? So just blindly solving questions, right? This is one of the mistakes people make, okay? So now if I know this is a mistake, right? So what should I be doing, okay? So one very important thing to do and one very important thing to notice is that before even starting, just make a timeline, right? From today's date to the date of your placement, just make those timeline. These are the 4 months, these are the 6 months I'm having, and then try to divide the topics accordingly. Okay, wherever there is necessary, give time to more topics like graphs, DP, etc., which are asked frequently, and so on, right? So it's very important that you start with a timeline or some timeline. Okay, see, it might be wrong, etc., you might need to readjust it later, but it's just better than just blindly solving and then taking 1 month for arrays and then realize, oh no, like I'm lacking behind in syllabus. Okay, so one thing to improve upon that. Second thing to improve, right? Basically, have a structured way of learning. Okay, have a structured way of learning. Now, what does that mean, right? So basically, in the course that we teach, of course, like we go through the topics, we go through the patterns, etc. We provide it to our students, right? But in your case, I would say, right? One thing I would suggest is key, not only just solve questions, but take time after solving questions. Okay, take time out after solving questions. So what does that mean, right? So let's say you solved some particular question. Okay, uh, make sure you take out 15 minutes and write down those important questions. And trust me, this will lead to my third point, right? Or a sub point of this particular thing, right? You should have your own notes. Okay, whether it's for your data structure algorithm, okay, or whether it's for the most important questions in that particular data structure or algorithm that you are studying. Okay, so take time out after solving the question, at least 15 minutes, and try to analyze. Okay, what was the thing that I struggled in the question? If I was able to solve it, then what was the pattern that is observed there? Now, what this will do is, yeah, okay, so this will take some of your time. It might make say that, okay, shouldn't I just move on to the next question, right? But whenever you will see such similar question in the future, even after 3 months, 4 months, those things will stay in your memory, right? Especially when you write it down. And that is a smart way of learning. And that is a way, by just solving, I would say, only 150 to 200 questions, still you can take the juice, still you can learn in a way that you solve, you are doing an equivalent of 1000 questions. Okay, so that is the very key idea. Okay, so make sure you learn in a structured manner, you take notes, you observe patterns, right? And you write down the important questions, etc., beforehand. Okay, so that is one important thing. Okay, next important thing, or the next mistake that people make. Okay, I will solve, I will target to solve maybe 10 plus questions in a day. Okay, and that's my target. Okay, and then I will solve a lot of questions. Okay, in a very, let's say, fixed time period. Okay, or I see a profile that has solved 1000 plus question, and then I idealize them. Okay, that, okay, this is the way to go about it. Now realize this one thing, right? Out of all the 1000 plus profiles, etc., that you might have seen, or 10 plus question, when you try to solve this many questions in a day, right, what will happen essentially is you will try to solve a lot of easy questions. Okay, so what happens is, generally such profiles are built in 2 years, 3 years. And if you carefully notice, right, whether it's in code forces, etc., there are a lot of uh, emphasis on easy questions. So there are, so out of this 1000 plus questions, if 500, 600, 800 were easy, the actual learning happened in only about, I would say, 20% or so of the questions. Okay, only in this much the learning actually happened. So it's very important that you don't make this mistake. Okay, if you know this is where it will cause a problem, and let's say uh, all you will do is end up solving easy question, you will not learn new things. Okay, so start with easy, I would say. So it's important when learning new topic, start with easy when learning. But as soon as that initial learning happens maybe in a day or two, right? Mainly focus on medium and medium hard questions, right? So these are the questions that are generally asked for interviews, okay? So mainly focus on medium and medium hard questions, okay? That's very important. And one more thing I would like to highlight, right? So try to solve different kinds of questions, okay? So try to solve different, I would say this is not here, okay? It would be here, okay? So solve different kind of questions of every subtopic, okay? Of every subtopic. Okay, and where do you find this subtopic? Interviews, okay? Interviews. So make sure, so one of the key practices, one of the key mistake people make is they don't look at past interviews. Of course, before exams, everyone will look, right? But they generally don't look at past interviews, maybe 3 or 4 months before, okay? So don't look at past interviews. This is the mistakes that people make, okay? So I'll just write the mistakes column. Okay, so do not make this mistakes, okay? So suppose your dream company is Amazon, okay? One of the things that I would suggest, okay, is this, okay? That you study the questions of Amazon, okay, and see which different subtopics they are asking upon, which topics they are asking upon, and that will give you idea of the important subtopics. And then try to study the different kind of questions over there. So what this will do is this, all these things, right, will make your DSA study more efficient. You can of course go this way, right? But the only thing is then you require a lot of time. But what we want essentially is in this 4 to 6 months, you do things in a very structured manner, right? So this is what essentially will be required. And this is the mistakes I want you to avoid. And this is the path I suggest you to follow, okay? The first important part is problem solving and problem solving through DSA. So make sure like you are very good over that, okay? So let's then move on to the next part. So we discussed about problem solving, okay? Then comes the second part, yeah? So what second part does the company test me upon? Communication, okay? So how all can you improve your communication? So any ideas? I like any of one of you might any one of you want to suggest? How can we improve communication? Because it looks like a difficult problem, right? Yeah, problem solving. I can go to websites and solve problems, etc. I can do what Swapnil suggested and follow this. But how do I improve communication? Okay. So one thing people said is reading. Yeah. So reading is good. Yeah. So देखो reading से so one thing so first let's clarify when I talk about communication, what all is needed, okay? So they don't want you speak very good English, okay? That's not their aim, okay? The English, etc. No, that's of course a little bit is required and so on, but that's not their aim. The fluency, etc. See, by communication, what they want is whatever ideas that you have, you are able to explain them, or you are able to talk with that with very much clarity. So what they will focus upon is that, right? Whether you are whether it's efficient or whether it's convenient to deal with you, whether you are able to catch hints or not, whether, as some of you said, right, whether you are able to listen properly or not, okay? So that all is very much required, okay? So here people make this mistake here, communication ke liye, like I will go to English classes and so on and so forth. Very basic things are required, right? You don't require that much. If you have, see, if you are reading your English textbooks, okay, if you are able to follow up this lecture, etc., that's enough. That's all you require. But what you require is confidence, okay? One is confidence, and second, you should have a habit of that environment, right? You should not get nervous in that environment, okay? So This is the second thing, right? So second thing, let's come to, I would say, soft skills, okay? Or I would say communication, or even a better word that I generally like to put is your interview skills, okay? Is your interview skills. So isme will again go through those same frameworks, okay? So what is that framework, right? Do not go where you are about to die, okay? So what is the common mistakes that people make, and even the best of the communicators make, that leads them to fail in an interview or so on, or leave an impact, okay? So one of the common mistakes people make is they go into war without practice, okay? They go into war without practice. Now you might say, Swapnil, what is war? What is practice? This is interviews we were talking about, okay? So let's take a simple scenario, okay? Uh, let's say Australia or India, okay? Let's say India wants to play a World Cup in Australia. So can Kohli, Rohit and his team and their team, right? Can they go to Australia and start playing without any practice match or without any practice in the nets? That won't be possible, right? You would say, यार पागल हो गए क्या? World Cup 4 साल में एक बार आता है, okay? World Cup comes once in 4 years. Why do you want to do that, right? Go into the match with practice, okay? Similarly, if let's say there's a war that's going on and there are no drills that happen, will that war strategy be successful? Most likely no, okay? यार आपका जो interviews होने वाले, right? The jobs that you will be targeting after this summer, right? This is what you came to college for. This is what you have been preparing for till now, right? One of the most important events of your life, why do you want to go into it without proper practice or mock interviews, okay? So most 90%, 99%, I would say, people will go into their first interview that happens on their campus without any mock interview. First time they will be facing a person, right? What are the chances that it will fail, right? It's a high chance it will fail, okay? High chance that the first few interviews will just be the learning experience, and only in the 5th, 10th interview that you will actually start delivering and performing well. Don't make that mistake, okay? So always practice, right, in mock interviews, okay, or interview drills before actual interview. Before actual interview. This is very, very much bad, right? अगर यार मैं simple सा I tell you one framework, right? कि जो भी मैंने आपको स्टार्टिंग में बिल्कुल बोला था कि यार जो 3 बाइट डांस सिंगापुर में निकले, मतलब 20+ लोग गूगल में निकले, अमेजोन में निकले, ये सब निकले, all of them had at least one thing in common, right? Every one of them who were AlgoUniversity student had their mock interviews with me or some other mentor from that respective company like Amazon, Google, etc. and so on, right? You can visit our YouTube channel and see some of these testimonials, right? How helpful it was, right? And the simple part is, right, it takes very little. So of course they got over there, right? But even if that is not there, you can still practice with your friends, you can still form study groups, right? You can still simply, even if nothing is there, right, forget about all these things. If nothing is there, you can just simply go in front of mirror, or while you are solving the lead code question, just imagine as if it was an interview, and then first try to tell the algorithm, okay, and then code the interview, right? Minimum, okay, minimum to minimum, right? But please practice that, right? Because this should not come as a sudden surprise कि यार मैंने पूरा 6 महीना मेहनत करी, right? But just because of this small thing, it was a difference between 30 LPA package and a 10 LPA package, right? So we don't want to make this mistake, okay? Second is like same thing, like when it comes to mock interview, then comes the resume review, right? So resume is also a part of soft skills, etc., right? Sort of like how you write it, how you present yourself. Okay. So people generally make resume, forget it, and then when the SPC or placement committee asks, they submit the resume. That's it. Sometimes the resume will have grammatical mistakes. Sometimes the resumes projects won't be described properly, right? Thousands of things. Okay. Always get your resume reviewed. Okay. And this is not a very difficult task here. You can, of course, one thing is for grammatical mistakes, etc. You can use softwares. You can ask your friends to review it, right? But your seniors are there, right? Your other folks are there, right? Make sure to leverage people, right? And get your resume reviewed before your placement season, right? This all are very must skills. And we don't want that, like, you are really good at problem solving, but because of all the skills, you land into trouble. Okay. uh, Next thing, right, a part is, right, the third part, right? Third part generally, we talked about problem solving. Okay, we talked about communications. Okay, the third part is specific knowledge. Okay, so specific knowledge might not be required always. Okay, but you cannot rely upon not doing it, right? So apne taraf se you need to be always prepared. Okay, from your side, always be prepared. Okay. So what do you mean by specific knowledge? Okay. So nowadays, in lot of companies, okay, you require good projects. Okay, especially when it comes to startup companies, etc. Good projects are a must. Okay, and especially I would say where the demand is high, right? So for example, frameworks like Django, Monstack, etc. It's generally recommended that you have some good projects in this area. Okay, or if not, at least some good level of projects. Okay, so this is a whole different topic in itself. Ki yaar, projects, how should I do? Okay, what should be my strategy? What are the different kinds of project? Where should I refer and so on? Okay, since it's a whole different topic in itself, today I will just highlight its importance, but there will be a different special session on it separately, right? And this will be taken none other than by CEO of AlgoUniversity, Manas. Okay, so he will be taking a special session on what should be your strategy for projects in this summer and before your placement, and how your resume should look like, where should your projects come, and so on. How should you describe it, and so on and so forth. Okay, so for projects, okay, make sure that if you do not have 2 to 3 good projects in your resume, okay, so always have 2 to 3 good projects in your resume. And this is something that you can do very well side by side with your DSA practice, because summer you won't be having your uh, classes and so on. So this can be done side by side. Things like core subjects, etc., and projects. This can be done very much side by side. Okay. So the way you can divide your time is something in the ratio of maybe 70-30 or 60-40 according to your preparation, right? Where 70% you focus on DSA, and the rest 30% of the day you focus on your specific knowledge, that is projects, core subjects, etc., right? But 2 to 3 good projects in resume are always recommended. Okay. And another strategy, right? Core subjects. Okay, core subjects. So what do I mean by core subjects? Okay, so OS, DB, so operating system, databases, computer networks, high level design, low level design, object oriented programming, all these things. Okay, now for these subjects, uh, again, let's talk a little bit about one common mistake people make. Okay, the common mistake that people make: start with some material or course on core subject. Okay, or some maybe YouTube video tutorial, etc., and then get stuck, okay, for 1 month in it, somewhere around 1 month, okay. Then at the end of 1 month, I forgot what I did earlier, okay, and I now wasted a lot of time. I didn't have a clear timeline beforehand, so that's where I landed into trouble, okay. How do you avoid this mistake? So now you know this mistake. How do I avoid this mistake? Again, there's a very simple strategy, okay. And what is that simple strategy? So we'll move with the strategy of same strategy of invert, always invert, okay. So start backwards, okay. So invert, always invert means start backwards, okay. So start backwards. So how do you start backwards? Now you would say, so यार कैसे पीछे से पढ़ना शुरू करें क्या book? No, that's not what I mean. Start backwards means that start with the interviews, okay. So here is what I want you to do, okay. Suppose in your campus, you know that the first 10 to 20 companies that you are targeting that will be coming in your campus, okay. If you don't know them, no worries, just see the past record, ask some past placement coordinator, etc. Now for this 10 to 20 companies, list down, right, list down their CS subject questions, okay, all the questions they ask on CS subjects, okay. List down even the subtopics, okay, list down even the subtopics. See, now when you do that, okay, it's not that you will learn each and everything, it's not that you will cover the entire syllabus, okay, but you will develop one very smart characteristic. You will know what is important, okay. And now you start studying from those topics, okay. Start studying from those topics, and it doesn't matter from where you study. You can study it from online sources, you can study it from there, but more important is you know those specific topics, right? Because now two things will happen. One, you will be more efficient, कि आपका time कम लगेगा. Second, whatever time you give, that will be well spent. It's not that like whatever you read, 80% of it will go waste. Most of it, right? The simple thing is that these questions repeat often, okay. This question repeat often, and you will realize that when you see this interview experience over the past 3 to 5 years, this same things repeated again and again. So 100% में से खाली वो 20% काम की होती है, right? So make sure you identify those topics and start studying from there, and then if you require any prerequisite, study those and so on, okay. And you might understand, you might ask like how, like can you give me some intuition or example, right? So just imagine, right, कि suppose ऐसा कोई exam था, right? Suppose you had some exam in your college, right? That you knew that this professor always asks this question or always asks topics from this question. It doesn't matter if the syllabus is big or so, right? What you will do is you will read that topic first, okay? And then at least then you will try to cover the rest of the topic, that in worst case if we ask if we ask from another topics and so on. तो इससे क्या होता है कि confidence आ जाता है कि one कि at least I am covered, okay, and second your hit ratio is very high. कि the amount of effort you put in and the output you got was significantly different, okay, और वही हमें चाहिए, right? So let me give you a shocking example, right? So there was one student, right, called as Nitin, okay, and he was very good in DSA. तो ऐसे ही था, उनका भी मई में शुरू हुआ था बैच, okay. तो मई जून जुलाई अच्छे से DSA किया, अब placements आए, okay. So now he had to sit for Oracle. And then he said, okay, sir, I have Oracle. Okay. Then I said, okay, chalo, give mock interview. Mock interview happened. And we asked as if it was an Oracle interview. So following that pattern. And we recognized that he didn't know any OS, DVC. And so we asked, okay, you didn't study that or what before? We had given you the list of topics and so on, material. And nahi kabhi sir, money nahi hua kab karne ka, okay. And then we said, no problem. At least these are the important things in Oracle and these are the important topics. Okay. At least read them. Okay. I don't know what will happen 2 days. Do not expect much. Okay. But at least try to read this. And luckily, the DB part that he read, right? From that, a lot of questions were asked. Now, of course, he was not able to answer 100% of the question, but combined his DSA and whatever he had read, right? That helped him crack even Oracle interview. Okay. And that was just with 2 days. Okay. Imagine what would have happened. Let's say you do it in a very structured manner in a 2 to 3 month time period. Okay. It will make a whole lot of difference if you do this beforehand for every company. Okay. At least the important companies on your campus. Okay. So make sure that you are taking care of all of these aspects. And if you avoid where you are going to die, if you avoid these common mistakes, of course, you will end up doing the right things. And if you end up doing the right things day by day for 6 months, where more than 90% of people won't be doing it, naturally you will have a competitive advantage. And sometimes you will have this competitive advantage over folks who are even practicing from 2 years and so on, right? So many people get surprised कि 6 months में Google हो गया, 6 months में इनका कैसे हो जाता है, जबकि ये 2 साल से मैं competitive programming कर रहा था, right? So the approach also matters a lot, okay? So how much ever good you are, whatever level you are in, right? Make sure you focus on the approach, because that is very, very important, right? So make sure of all of these things, right? If you think backwards, see what all is important for an interview, what mindset do you require, and do not go where you die. And if you do not make the mistakes that people generally make and do the right things that we pointed out here in green, that's all you need. And it's just a very simple path to success. Okay. So I know many of you have very many questions, right? And I would love to take those questions. But yeah, before we take those questions and we discuss a little bit more further, right? I would like to highlight a few things, okay? So just like in 2021, just like in 2022, even in 2023, we will be having this special boot camp for the summer, right? Where we will be having a batch of around 50 plus students that we will be training, okay? So we'll be starting this batch in the month of May. And this is the rough plan that we have, right? From the month of May, June, July, we will be preparing you for your placement, right? In the month of May, June, July, we'll be preparing you for placements. And what we'll be doing is we'll be covering all the things that we discussed here, right? So from problem solving and DSA, so all the important DSA topics for interview, will be having classes, assignments, contests, mock interviews, etc. on that, okay? Then we'll be having online assessments based upon particular companies in the style of Amazon, Uber, Google, etc. Okay. And then we'll be having further things like developing your own projects, okay? Having classes on HLD, LLD, etc. Having material for core subjects and so on, okay? So this we'll be doing it over this month of May, June, July. And almost the classes will be happening on a daily basis, right? So it's your summer vacation and it will be a very, very intensive boot camp, and it will be preparing you for your placements, okay? And finally, from August and August onwards, we'll be having some extra classes and support for your placements, right? So company specific preparation based upon companies coming in your campus, like Amazon, if Amazon comes and so on, or if some different company comes. So specific preparation for that, mock interview for that, and so on, right? And some classes on advanced DSA, some classes to become better at interviewing, becoming a better software developer, off-campus opportunities, how to identify